Happy new day to all of my animal loving friends. I'm Denise Fleck, the Pet Safety Crusader, bringing you the information you need to know to help your dog and cat live a longer, happier, healthier life by your side. And today I want to talk about those two elements, hydrogen and oxygen. And when they combine as H2O, what they make, and that is water. And water is just so very important for all living things. In particular, our dogs and cats are about 3/4 water. So our pets really need that fresh supply all day, every day. And I can't emphasize enough to please wash out those water balls. A biofilm forms because even, us humans don't want to drink out of the same glass, constantly without cleaning it in between. And our pets actually dip their tongues into the bowl of water and leave a biofilm behind. So it's just important every day you get out some warm soapy water and clean that bowl really well, get rid of the soap, and put that fresh water in and make sure it's a full bowl all day long. But I want to talk to you a little bit about water too much or not enough. And, a little background on our pets as far as the water goes. Cats were domesticated somewhere around 3,500 years ago, but they're on cave drawings way back 10,000 years ago, just like when we say our dogs were actually domesticated. And the way the cats kind of came into the whole thing is when we started storing up grains, when we became agriculturalists, and we started storing the grains, obviously mice, the rodents hung out. And where there are mice, there are kitty cats. And because cats, in those early days got most of their fuel, their protein from eating mice too, like dogs, cats, and humans, are about 3/4 water. And because the cats were constantly munching on the right mice, so to speak, the thirst element in their brain probably never highly developed in the domesticated cat. What I'm saying is they didn't have that trigger that made them feel the need to drink a lot of water because they were getting the liquid from their rodent friends. So it's one of the things now that we have our domesticated kitty cats in our homes that it's so important we make sure they drink. Our dogs, on the other hand, drink voraciously most of the time. There are certainly exceptions to the rule, and if you have a doggy that doesn't drink much, you need to make sure he does. Actually, with dogs, sometimes we need to make sure they don't take up, but I'll get to that in a moment. But with cats, it's just so important, especially if they're eating a dry kibble diet, that they do consume enough water. And how much is enough for a cat? Probably a cup to a cup and a half a day for our cats. For our small dogs, about 2 quarts or half a gallon. And for our larger canine friends, probably close to a gallon a day is what they should intake. Now, of course, what goes in must come out too, and we need to monitor that. But that I'm also going to get to in a few moments here. Hey, Deborah, nice to have you join in today. So about our kitties and drinking. Most cats are fascinated by running water, actually, whether it's a babbling brook or the swirling down as you flush the toilet, or the running of a faucet. So, sometimes that might be your incentive to trick your kitty to get her to drink enough water. For some reason, cats very often don't like to drink out of a bowl that's near their food. Go figure. Don't know what the reason for that one is. But I also do know that a lot of cats don't like to drink out of bowls simply because their whiskers touch. Whiskers are like kitty radar, and they kind of signal a cat as to whether a hole or an opening is of sufficient size for the cat to get in. And if the whiskers are constantly hitting the bowl, that's kind of an irritating a feeling or sensation for the cat. So you may have better luck if you actually feed your cat out of a flat saucer. Or if you give her your coffee mug or a highball glass or a champagne glass and have that on the counter or on a windowsill where it's not getting too warm, but someplace where she can't knock it over and get hurt, but where she has access to that water. Another great thing for cats, since they like the running water, are these fountains that you can get where the water's constantly circulating, being well oxygenated. But just like I mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast today about water bowls, you have to clean out those fountains. And those fountains have a lot of little pieces. And if you don't tend to that regularly, it can be a buildup of algae and biofilm and other things in there too. So you don't want to make kitties sick. But think cup and a half a day for your feline friends, 2 quarts for your small dogs, and somewhere close to a gallon for our larger best buddies. If our pets aren't getting enough water, you're going to notice some of the signs in that they don't have elasticity in their skin. One of the ways many people know to check the hydration level of their dog or cat is by grabbing a little fold of skin at the nape of the neck and pinching it into a tent. And if you release it and it falls back in place quickly, we feel our pets are well hydrated. That it's called the Tugor test, T-U-G-O-R, and personally, I much rather feel our pets' gums. If they're wet, you're good to go. But if the gums are dry or sticky, you should really encourage your pet to drink. The reason I prefer feeling the gums is that Tugor test, by pulling the skin on the back of the neck, can give you a semi-false reading sometimes if you have an older pet, for instance, who has naturally lost some of the elasticity in his skin. Or if you have, say, a Basset Hound or a Shar-Pei or, one of those breeds with really loose skin. So it's a relatively good test, but I prefer feeling the gums to see if, you can better check if the gums are sloppy wet, the pet's well hydrated. Now, if they aren't, encouraging them to drink, could be taking them to their water bowl or getting out that mug of water. Maybe your kitty likes a fancy teacup. But other things you can do are go to your pet first aid kit and get out your needleless syringe or eyedropper and dribble a little bit in the back of their mouth. If you have a clean spray bottle that's never had anything in it but water, don't rinse out a Windex bottle, but a clean spray bottle, you can always spritz out their mouths. For cats, tuna juice is a great idea, the liquid that you pour out when you have a can of tuna. Now, any of you that have listened to me before and talked about food and nutrition, a cat cannot live by tuna alone. Tuna does lack certain amino acids, particularly taurine, that are very necessary for brain and heart development in a cat. But, trying to give her some of the tuna juice to get some liquid in her might just even increase her thirst sensation, and she'll drink some water. You can give it to her straight up, or you can actually freeze it into an ice cube tray. You could probably use clam juice as well, or salmon juice, whatever you have. Now, salmon generally doesn't have the extra liquid in it, though, like the clams or the tuna would have. So that's another possibility to try to get your kitty, encourage her to drink. If she'll just go for some ice cubes or some ice chips, that's something to try as well. But especially in these hot days, and my California friends out there, I don't know what the heck has happened. I know the Northeast was scorching last week or so, but you guys are absolutely baking, frying, broiling, grilling. I don't know what it is that's going on there. I never in my days there saw it 119, in the San Fernando Valley north of Los Angeles. So I hope you cool off soon. Stay well hydrated, protect those precious paws as well. If it's too hot for you to walk on barefoot, it's certainly too hot for your pets to be on. But I just wanted to talk about a few more signs that your pets might need water, that they're not getting enough in them. And besides the lack of elasticity in the skin is if their eyes look sunken, if the skin's actually sticking together when you pinch it. If the skin looks dry or flaky, could be another sign. If they don't have an appetite, sometimes when they're not drinking, they also don't have an appetite as well. But a great thing to pay attention to is what comes out of your pet. Are they urinating and defecating enough? And I know some of you are having morning coffee, some of you may be getting ready for lunch, but with our pets, we have to talk about these things. And cats should make several clump-size urine balls, if you have the clumping litter daily. Dogs, my goodness, Haiku, when we go on a walk, he never empties his bladder all the way. I mean, that's typical of an older male, that they never do completely empty their bladder. And sometimes It'll make them feel like they're always partially full, so they'll have that urgency more often. But with him, he's just, you know, a marker. He has to mark his territory. And on our morning walks, after he's already been out for his initial morning pees, but on his morning walks, he'll easily raise his legs 7 to 15 times on a walk, you know, until it's really down to a dribble. So dogs will go much more frequently, but you always want to try best you can. I know especially with females, it's hard because they squat and you don't get to see that urine stream, but you want to see that it's kind of straw colored, that it shouldn't be so dark yellow or brownish, because that would imply it's too concentrated, that your pet isn't drinking enough. As far as their defecation, kitties generally on average, and remember there's always exceptions to the rule, the important thing is to know your unique individual pet, but kitties on average go at least once every 24 to 36 hours. Dogs are actually a bit more frequent, and they generally have 2 defecations per day. And I hope I'm not going to ruin your childhood sweet treat, but think of a Tootsie Roll. That's really what the consistency should be. It should be firm. It should have a good shape. Hey, Norma, thanks for joining in. And when you joined in, you probably just got an earful, because we're talking about the shape and consistency of your pet's poo. But also, if it's a kitty going in the litter box, the litter should actually stick to it. It should be a little bit moist. And the same thing with your dog. A little sand should stick to it, or if it's pine needles or, you know, grass clippings or whatever's around there, it should be a little moist. So if things are too dry, your pet probably is not getting enough water. And like I said, pets are 3/4 water. They require a good fresh supply of it every day, 24/7, 365 days a year. But right now, with the heat is on, really make sure they're staying well hydrated. And what I want to emphasize about that is, you know, even though it's hot out, we have to get our dogs out for a walk. Cats, you know, get to go to the luxury of their bathrooms to answer nature's call indoors for the most part. But, you know, stick to the cooler parts of the day as best you can. But when a dog's got to go, a dog's got to go. Try to find, you know, the shade, protect those paws like I mentioned earlier. And just, you know, really be very cognizant of the heat. But when you're taking them out for a walk, bring the water with you. And don't wait till like you get all the way up to the top of the canyon or all the way around the block. Stop frequently in this warmer weather and give them small bits of water. I don't want you to wait till you get to a stopping point and then pour a whole bowl of water, or really give them your water bottle or however it is you feed them up or allow them to drink on a walk, but let them really tank up. Because when a dog starts drinking so voraciously, he's going to gulp a lot of air and he can actually bloat. Other things that happen is he actually can regurgitate the water. It gets in his esophagus and he's hot, or he's drinking too fast and it can't go down quick enough, and it comes back up very quickly. And regurgitation is different from vomiting. Regurgitation is often silent and it just catches you and the dog by surprise. But the problem with it is that they can then aspirate that fluid into their lungs. So on your walks, especially during the hotter months of the year, make sure you're giving them short little bits of water along the way, as opposed to waiting till they tank up. The other component of this that I want to mention is something called hyponetremia. And it's basically water toxicity. And I was telling you that it's so important that our pets get water, and I was giving you the amounts, and they absolutely need that water. But sometimes, again, during the summer, because that's when pets will play in the water, and we'll play in the water because we like to get cooled off, dogs will actually intake too much water. So if they're swimming and they're drinking as they swim, if you're throwing the ball into the ocean or the lake and they're running and getting it, and each time they scoop that ball out of the water, they're getting a mouthful of water as well. Or if they're just going to their bowls and really tanking up, they can get what's actually called water toxicity. And some of the signs and symptoms would be a lack of coordination. They're kind of stumbling about. They may actually start to vomit or, you know, appear nauseous. They can bloat because they've got too much water in them. They may have difficulty breathing. And it actually can be fatal. What happens is they get a severe imbalance of the electrolytes in their blood, and actually the plasma in the blood starts to thin as well. So as important as water is, if you are playing water sports with your pet and he's consuming lots of water, whether it's out of a bowl or out of the lake or the pool or whatever it happens to be, make sure you're taking periodic breaks. Don't just keep throwing the ball. I know those of you with labs, I've had a couple myself. Although my black lab, Mr. Rico, would move away from a ball. It was the strangest thing. But Sunny, we couldn't get a tennis ball away from her. She would exhaust herself. So it's important that you do the proper pet parenting and give them breaks, because if they consume too much water while they're doing that, number one, they can get exhausted. But you don't want them to experience this hyponetremia, because then you have to quickly, obviously, get the electrolytes in them and get them to veterinary care. It's a really severe thing. And a lot of people don't know about it. Like I said, it's mostly typical of labs, but it can be border collies or any of the active animals that will chase balls. You know, maybe even your doxy or whoever it is that likes to chase a ball and go in the water. So just be very cognizant of that. So I've talked to you about, you know, how important water is, how much our pets should have, some ideas to get kitty cats to drink if they want. And of course, those ideas might work for your dog as well, but they're just a bit more voracious and often, you know, will drink the water. And just to remind you to check the output, because what goes in, we need to go out. And if your pet's ever drinking a lot and isn't urinating, we're really concerned about his or her kidneys, and you need to have an immediate checkup, because you know the kidneys are filtering all that through the body, and if they shut down, the toxins are going to get into the whole system, and we can have a very serious life-threatening situation. So have an awesome day with your dog, your cat, your humans, what other furry creatures you may have in your household. Make sure everybody stays well hydrated and cool. But also when you're playing those summer sports, keep an eye on the dogs so that they're not consuming too much water and getting an electrolyte imbalance in their systems. Take care, and please go. I've got it posted on this to the actual written blog about water, too much or not enough, so you can get all the details, including my own homemade electrolyte recipe for those times when your pet is seeming a little hydrated and you need to get some of those sugars and salts back into them. You can give it to them in liquid form, or what I often do is freeze it in ice cube trays, pop those ice cubes out into a Ziploc bag and keep it in the freezer, and then just add those to the water bowl, and I'm sure my canine pal is getting all of the electrolytes he needs. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.